Welcome to another episode of the Finest Style podcast, where we celebrate the moments that define success. My guest today is Steve Crow, the Business Development Director of Clarion Solicitors based in Leeds. And I'm also very excited because we are actually in Leeds at Clarion Solicitors. So thank you so much for having us on the road. Yes, Steve?
Delighted to host you.
Yes.
Great that you can make it today.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Clarions are actually a very exciting company because you've just been named last week.
Yeah, we seem to be winning a few awards at the moment.
Yes.
So only a couple of weeks ago, we were announced as the best independent law firm in the UK.
Yeah.
So this firm from Leeds went down to London and stole the silver and came back up north.
Yeah, I like that.
with the prize.
And that's amongst many other awards that you recently or in the recent years have achieved.
Yeah,
so
we I guess in the time I've been here, it's all the stories have been about driving growth, double-digit growth, and there's a similar award where we've been awarded third fastest growing law firm in Europe. Not just Yorkshire, not the UK, but in
Europe.
In Europe, So we're really pleased with that, and then I guess place great store on culture. So Sunday Times best companies to work for. We've kind of ranked in that over a couple of years, and most recently ranked number 2 across all companies, all sectors, and number 1 in terms of law. So at the moment we seem to be riding high. But my job is to make sure that we're not complacent and that we keep sort of focus on that growth story and keep trying to understand what the change dynamics are in the market and make sure that we're responsive to that and we're always out competing the competition.
So yes, I think what we're going to do now is actually unpick why this is happening, because Clarion, when you joined, we're 60 people company, and now we're looking at 300 plus.
Gone way past 300,
Yeah. So I think the growth, a lot of that growth, you can say it was down to you. Thankfully.
No, actually, no, it's a team approach. I'd like to think that I've had some input, but it's about everybody acting together as one, having a kind of a shared vision. I guess growth requires a number of ingredients. I think there's a clear strategy, and I guess I could take some responsibility for that with my colleagues who may be in the room. So I better say that. But it needs strong leadership and culture. And there's that famous phrase, I think, from some Harvard business guru that says, "Is it culture eats breakfast? Culture eats strategy for breakfast every day, but it's leadership that puts the food on the table." And I think the real answer is you need those 3 ingredients. You need strong leadership that's pointing the business in the right direction and setting that growth agenda. You need a really strong underpinning culture, but you need a strategy. And I guess the strategy piece is where I take a bit of responsibility, and we do some quite unusual things around strategy, using sort of big data analytics to work out where we focus.
So that's where you basically, to arrive at that point where you have all this knowledge, it took some time and almost like this apprenticeship stage of going and seeing things in different companies and then bringing all the right ingredients to Clarion.
Yeah.
So because your background is in engineering.
It is, many. Actually, I'll take a step before that because it's pertinent to what I do now, which is business development and sales. When I was doing my A-levels, I had a part-time job at a weekend in a sports shop and sort of selling. And in those days, this is going way back, the approach was as kind of the young, spotty-aged teenager trying to sell to customers coming through the door would be, forced to go and approach them as they came through the door and say, "Can I help you?" Yeah. And actually, there's a phrase I use sometimes, which is around trying to catch trout. If you try to plunge your hand into a stream to grab a trout, it will dart away, you'll never see it again. Whereas this is maybe an urban myth, but if you put your hand under the trout and stroke it under the stomach, it goes far on, it goes half asleep, and you can just flick it out onto the bank. And I think it's similar in sales. If you go for instant gratification, they're just going to run, you'll never see them again. And actually what I learned even at that early stage was to allow the customers to come in, look at the product and wait for the kind of the body language where you could see they were interested in something, and then you go in and try to provide support. So that was my early,
That's interesting. You've not mentioned that. So that's like an even deeper reflection of where your first sort of sales experience came to place.
Yeah.
So how old were you then?
So I would have been, I guess, 16 to 18.
Yeah.
And then as you say, I went on to do a degree in engineering, and I kind of moved south at that point to London and Reading, and was a design engineer, a mechanical and electrical.
And you thought
engineer.
that's basically, I'm set for life. This is going to be my vocation. And then what?
Well, yeah, I was doing that, and I worked on some really interesting projects out, worldwide on big M&E projects where projects were running into the billions of pounds, and had a lot of responsibility on me at a very early stage. And as you say, I kind of thought that was it. In the back of my mind, I always thought, I'm not sure I'm a really good engineer. I thought I'm probably an okay engineer, but I'm not a great engineer, and I always like to be great at what I do. So it was just by coincidence that the partner I reported into, who headed up the M&E division, mechanical electrical division, also had responsibility for the sales and strategy business development function. And they were having some problems with this team of probably about 15. And he said, look, as part of your experience, we want you to go in and sort it out. You might have to fire a few people, you might have to recruit and do whatever you think, but we need this team to be working and realign to the objectives of the organisation. I thought, well, I can do that for 3 months, and went in and actually found I was enjoying this.
Quite good at it.
Quite good at it, and I thought I could actually be better at this than I can be as an engineer. So I extended it, and then I requalified. I got some professional qualifications in business development and marketing, and that was it. I then went on to head that role and drove a double-digit growth agenda with that business. So it was an accidental, I guess, transition into a new career, and that allowed me to move from the world of engineering into the world of Big Four. So I worked with 2 of the Big Four accountants for 12 years. They didn't really worry that I didn't have an accounting background. They wanted those core strategy BD skills. They could see that if I can apply it to another type of professional service firm, i.e. an engineering design consultancy, I could apply it to the world of accounting. And similarly, when I came to join Clarion, it's just another type of professional services firm, so I can apply the same techniques.
Yeah, and was it a risky move, you think, when you went from engineering into this other role?
I think so, and I mean, having listened to previous podcasts, that seems to be a reoccurring theme. That in my mind, I see it as the donut principle. If you're operating in kind of your current comfort area, you need to be extending just out of that. So you don't extend right out. So you take a massive risk where you can end up falling on your face. I think in my career, it's been
the donut principle. Why the donut?
Well, it's constantly expanding like this.
All right.
So
donuts in the oven.
It could be anything. It could be an expanding circle, if you like.
Expanding circle. Okay.
So it's that point of, I know where I am in terms of my comfort zone at the moment. I'm nervous about doing something next.
Well, I'll do it anyway.
But I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not trying to do things too extreme, but over my 35-year career, and I continue to do it, I push myself out of my comfort zone. And suddenly you kind of look back at where you were when you were 18, and you look at what you're doing now, and you're thinking, I cannot believe that I'm doing that.
But in terms of when you transitioned from the corporate world into the world of Clarion, which, as you said, is your dream job, this must have been there must have been a set of challenges at the time. So what were they, or what was it? Just exciting, or was it challenging? What was your mindset at the time, and why did you took on that as a next step in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I work with two of the really big brands, to the 2 biggest professional service firms on the planet. In terms of the Big Four.
Doesn't get bigger than that.
Doesn't get bigger, and actually, big isn't always best. I mean, they're amazing brands to work for, an amazing experience. But actually, if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit, which I think I have, then I like to be able to react really quickly, to have an idea, and to be doing it almost instantaneously. I know some of my colleagues get frustrated.
You could never. So in a corporate world, what is it like?
The nature of those businesses, they've got to have a lot more process and red tape.
Structure
because if they get something wrong, and there's a big risk, then it has massive global implications for those organisations. So, I think some people's mindset is well suited to that more process-driven sort of approach. And I say great organisations to work for. But what I wanted to do was to get myself into a business where I could get my arms around a business and really affect change. We like to think we're quite entrepreneurial. It's that ability to have an idea and to just do it, and not to always have to ask for permission, but be prepared to ask for forgiveness, which I think is kind of the mindset, I think, of most people in Clarion. We're quite entrepreneurial. We'll take risks. We'll be brave, and we'll be bold. And I can't think of many situations where it's gone wrong. It might not have gone as well as we might have expected on certain things, but it's never gone wrong. So taking risks, I think, is quite important.
So you never had that opportunity in the big firms. However, what have you learned during that time of your career that you then brought to Clarion and made better?
Yeah, I think it wasn't just that ability to react quickly. I think culture plays a really important part for me. And whilst I've had some great times in some of those other 5 or 6 organisations I worked with before Clarion, my colleagues were my colleagues. I think at Clarion, my colleagues are my friends as well. Without exception. I'm at a point in my career where my children have flown the coop. My house is paid for, and all of that. And where you spend your time is really quite important.
Yes.
And so I want to be. I work really hard still. Still working kind of very long hours. I don't want to be doing that in an organisation that I'm not enjoying. So I want to be in an organisation we're surrounded by friends that we have. We all work hard together, but we have great conversations. We have a lot of fun together as well.
So this is, as you said, your dream job now, and I think it must have been very satisfying to see it grow as it has, where you could put into practice everything you've learned, and just to see it flourish. Because so stepping into that, did you realize this is what it's going to be, or was it unknown? No, what was it?
It was a step into the unknown, and it was a kind of risk for both of us, because the senior management team that recruited me here, thinking
this guy's come from
businesses that are turning over 25 billion, and we were a couple of million at that stage. Will he be able to right size himself to our situation? And that was the thing I spent a lot of time on. I've over the years, 35 years, developed some, I'd say, leading edge methodologies around business development and strategy.
You talked about that, and at the time, I think we didn't have the time to find what's in your toolbox. Can you share a little bit about what's your magic process there?
And it's not rocket science, but I think it's you get often in the world of sales, you get sometimes called a rainmaker. That's that person that goes out to see a potential client, and they come back and they win the business. And often in professional services, the head poncho in the organisation thinks, God, if I could get that person to train some other people to do it, then wouldn't life be good? You're kind of duplicating that capability, and often that rainmaker goes out and takes the bright young thing to show them the ropes. And what often happens when they go in and have that great meeting and they're debriefing in the car park, and the bright young thing says, "That was great. How did you know to ask that question and to close at that particular time?" Often the response is, "I don't know. It's what I've always done." And I would call those as unconsciously competent. So they're competent, but they don't know what it is that they're doing.
That makes them competent.
Yeah. And so what we've done is to unpick that whole process and turn it into a process that can be explained step by step into a methodology. So we go from, in Clarion, spend a lot of time on market segmentation. So I've got a database that has got probably about 500 million companies on it worldwide. And over the years, myself and my colleagues have learned how to really play tunes on that data, so you can understand the dynamics in the market and work out exactly where you need to focus. And so whilst we use that to drive our own double-digit growth, part of what we do is to help our clients to grow. And we don't charge for that. We like to work on a partnering basis with our clients. So if they're more successful, then they're probably more likely to need us for our traditional legal services. So we invest a lot of time helping our clients to grow their businesses. We do market analysis for them. We make introductions to them, and it works. So some of our smallest clients are now some of our largest clients, and we've been on the journey.
You've been on the journey with them.
Been on the journey with them.
Yeah. And that's very satisfying to see that, you see these companies flourish and be part of their success.
And it's a different mindset, I think, too. I'm not saying we're unique in that. I'm sure we aren't, but it is having some skin in the game with your clients. It's a kind of a mutual reason as to why, we want them to be successful. So I think that's been a kind of a really important part of what we do. Kind of a core part of Clarion is investing and adding value into our clients. I think it's also recruiting amazing talent, from some of the larger firms, but also investing in our homegrown talent, so bringing our youngsters through. So when I started, there were people that were kind of a fairly junior associate, so now at a partner level. And what we've tried to do is to kind of upskill them on the journey. So, often when you talk about sales, it has connotations. If I say to people, what trades do you think of in terms of sales? You'd probably say, car salesman, double glazing, insurance. It has, hopefully there's nobody kind of listening to this that are in those categories. But but actually, selling has a certain connotation. The way I try to think of it is, if we've got clients with business issues, we should be talking about those issues. We should be exploring, what it means for them, and trying to create a vision as to how together we can solve those visions. But also to link that to the value that we can create in solving them. So it's often about, gosh, it's interesting you say you've got that issue, because we work with a few other companies like that on that issue. And when we solve that issue for them, we enhance revenue, or we reduce cost, or we de-risked that business model. So the client really understands the value that you're bringing to them.
I think another interesting thing from our conversation was the fact that, when the pandemic hit, everybody were panicking, trying to get the work from home set up. You guys just flicked the switch, didn't you? And you had the biggest growth probably in that period.
It's one of our best years, actually.
Your best years, because you already had the infrastructure. People knew how to transition to work from home. So for you, it was just,
It wasn't quite instantaneous, but it was pretty quick. And actually, it was fortunate that we're 75% female in Clarion, and so we've invested in a lot of infrastructure to make it easy for people to be flexible in their working hours, home working, and what have you. And also because we invested so much in culture, and a key part of that is trust. We trust our people. So I think a lot of law firms, when it came to COVID, and people working at home and thinking, how do we control them? We don't trust them, but we absolutely trusted our people to do the right thing. I think most people probably worked harder during that time. So it was nearly a flick of the switch, but instantly people were able to work at home. The technology was there. We trusted them. We had a whole host of things to kind of bring us together.
And in that time, what was the growth of the company? Did you double in size?
So over those 2 years, I think it was probably almost a doubling in size of the business. Yeah. So over the last 10, 11 years, it's averaged kind of double digit growth, and we've just finished this financial year on about 15% growth.
That's fantastic. And in terms of obviously looking again back at your career and what you have achieved, and you reinvented yourself so many times through different stages of your life. You took the risk. What if you was to distill this wisdom and experience for somebody who, again, considering or wanting to do, but then they hold back? What would your advice would be?
It's difficult. I think going back to when I was quite young, I was actually probably introvert and shy.
Really?
Oh gosh, yeah. And I think most people, if they're being honest, would probably say the same. The thought at that age of standing in front of a conference and talking to 1,000 people, I wouldn't have thought I could do that. But now I feel absolutely
You feel
confident.
terrified if somebody tell you you have to do it in 10 years' time, and you'll be like, oh.
so I think it goes back to just going for being bold, but and asking for support. I know that I give a lot of support to, you can see people that are on a similar journey within Clarion that are not comfortable either about going out to talk to clients or speaking. We wrap a lot of support around them and give them encouragement and break any concerns they might have. It's just breaking it down. And so for me, one of the kind of the eureka moments was if I was presenting a PowerPoint presentation, this is going back sort of 30 years, I had it fixed that I had to know exactly every
Word
bit of
you
the content
say.
on the slides.
Yeah.
And it was like almost like the rabbit in the headlights. And the simple thinking, something I think probably advised me is just think about the first 10 seconds. Fix it in your mind. What is it you're going to say in the first 10 seconds? And then you get into your stride and you start to relax. Another great trick was is to start off with a rhetorical question to the audience. So actually you're putting the pressure onto them. And you because you've asked the question, you can leave it as just a pregnant pause for a while. It just gives you time to take a deep breath, focus and think, right, and then
deliver whatever you need to deliver.
So there's just, my career has just been, an eclectic mix of building up all these sort of different experiences to the point where you've forgotten what was a problem. It's quite straightforward.
Straightforward, yes. It's funny how the experience works, because you just have to every day learn something new and expose yourself to something different. And in terms of advice for younger Steve, just starting out, if there's anything you'll be able to say to your younger self, what would it be?
I think like a lot of people when they start their career, you go through the process. My days they were O levels. You were expected to do O levels. You were expected to do A levels. You were expected to do a degree. And I think at that stage, and I was probably a relatively immature young man at that stage, probably didn't really know what I wanted to do. And in fact, I definitely didn't know what I wanted to do. And you're kind of progressively making choices and you're kind of boxing yourself in. So I did kind of A levels that were in maths and the kind of the sciences. It felt the way I ought to be going at the time, but I had no idea how I was going to apply those A levels. And I kind of ended up accidentally in the world of engineering. And so therefore you decide that you've got to go into an engineering career. So
do you think maybe if you had a bit more of a plan when you was younger?
I think it's probably in those days there was very poor careers advice, and so just coming back to me is you didn't know what different jobs were entailed, and I think at secondary school you were almost being pushed into a career to fit the major employers in the region, and a lot of those were. It was in the northeast. There were a lot of sort of big metals companies, and we had some tours of these factories. I thought, I can't see myself being in one of these, but I don't know what I want to do. And so you are forced into making certain choices sometimes before you've got a real clear sense. So if I was taking a step back, I would have sought a lot more advice on what do different jobs look like. And in Clarion, we often take youngsters in at 14, 15 that are
and offer them
and just say, look, come, they might have an inkling they want to go into law. Well, come in and spend some time, and we'll circulate them around a couple of departments and get a feel for it. And so I think more support in helping kids to understand where different opportunities might be and getting them on the right sort of track. But I don't regret the journey I've taken. It's been accidental, but I've ended up in a place that I now really enjoy.
Yes, Steve, thank you very much for sharing your story. And it's definitely a story of risk-taking, big changes, going for your dreams, really, and then getting your dreams.
Well, perhaps not think I'd find my dreams, but ended up finding it at the tail end of my career.
I mean, this is a really great company, and thanks to you and the team, it looks like it's only going to go from strength to strength. And I would like to really thank you for hosting us here today. It was great to see the premises. It's very, very impressive and hospitality. So thanks for that. And I hope you enjoyed being on the podcast.
I did. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you for watching this episode of The Finest Hour. For more inspirational stories and people who achieved their finest hour or striving for one, please visit our channel. Thank you. Goodbye.